Between the two of them. The inside of Coates. Parker gets too heavily involved. And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Hello everybody and welcome to AOC Gaming's League of Champions powered by VRRC. My name is Jack Oliphant and alongside me is Dave Marshall, but today signifies an important day in the League of Champions. It is bang in the middle of the overall League of Champions Season 2. We are starting the GT4 Sprint. It runs in exactly the same format that the other two champions, the Janettas and the... It's got out of my head all of a sudden. Touring cars, there we go. I wanted to say Audis, but it's the touring cars. It runs in the same format. We've got two 20-minute races, and today we're at the Shanghai International. Dave, how the devil are you? And are you as excited as I am to see the GT4s take to the track?
Yeah, you know what? This is the first championship where you can see we've had multiple disciplines of car. So they're all GT4s, but different variations. Some with the engine in the front, some rear-wheel drive. So the first time the drivers have really had to do quite a lot of pre-testing to decide which car they want to get their hands on. And yeah, it's going to mean that it's not just down to the driver now. It's down to the car strengths and where's going to be good for them to overtake.
Absolutely does. You can see a selection of not only the cars, but the liveries on your screen at the moment. They look absolutely fantastic. I know a personal favourite of yours is the Mercedes that you were talking about before, Dave. The calendar is looking like, well, below. Shanghai tonight, Monza next week, Barcelona the week after, and then off to Spa, a fully continental sort of calendar we've got for the GT4s, I suppose, representing what the GT4s normally go and do as well, which is very exciting. And yeah, well, Dave, there's a fantastic selection of cars, isn't there? But it is encompassing the overall League of Champions as well. It's just 1/4 of the overall picture, and there's plenty of prizes to be won.
Yeah, there is indeed. I mean, this whole League of Champions is all about prizes, isn't it, really? So each individual championship, the winner of each individual championship, shall I say, is awarded. First place is one of our SR5 chassis. Second is one of our SR3s. And then third place is one of our GT F1 seats, which go from a GT position to an F1 recline position using exactly the same brackets and same seating position. So really, really nice seats. And then also, it's all part of a bigger championship again. Oh, you can see there, 4th to 8th prizes, also membership packages as well. But it's all part of a bigger thing where it goes to a finale race at the end of League of Champions. So the top 10 places after the end of League of Champions go into a final race. First, second, and third, as you see on screen, awarded a DD driving wheel, OBP sport pedals, and also a 34-inch curved display. Then the second race is 11th to 20th, and that's exactly the same prize as what we award for each individual championship. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. But as you can see, basically, if you enter, you've got a chance of winning something. And that's not to mention also our Driver of the Day award that goes to the driver that, would you say, impresses us most, Jack? You know, consistency, outright lap pace, and you can see that's provided by AOC, or AOC at the moment, for full-on 7.1 surround headphones, which I've tried and honestly are top-notch headphones.
Yeah, I think Rich has put a set aside for me as well. I'm very excited to get my hands on them because they do look spectacular. However, we need to figure out who actually won the prizes at the touring cars. We've already had the Ginetta Super Cup. Last time, 2 weeks ago, we were at the finale for the touring cars, and it was deadly close, wasn't it, Dave? It was absolutely thrilling. Everything is provisional on the night. However, there were already penalties, even before we closed the broadcast out, being put in. And, well, sorry, not penalties, but protests being put in for potential penalties. But this is how it ended. Dan Zelos took the championship with what was a fairly stunningly consistent drive from him all the way through the 4 rounds. And he finished on 114 points. Technically tied with Jordan Brennan, who scored 114 points. But I believe it goes down to race victories for Dan Zelos. So Dan Zelos had multiple race victories. Jordan Brennan only had, well, he had a few less, which is why it ended up Dan Zelos taking the overall championship. So Zelos took the SR5, Jordan Brennan took the SR3, sorry, and Scott Bugner, it was in 3rd place, tied with Jack McIntyre, but again, Scott Bugner won on the head-to-head style system, which, Dave, I'm guessing you'll talk about in a couple of seconds, just to clear up in case I've got anything wrong, but he went away with the GT4 racing seat. Yeah,
I mean, looking at that, could we have hoped for any tighter of a championship? It all came down to it, and you know what, for it to be that close after 4 rounds, it was too close to call, and especially with the protests that were going in as well, it was all going to be sort of down to the clerk, and the elbows were definitely out for that last round, weren't they, Jack? So, you know what, I'm hoping for maybe a slightly cleaner race this afternoon, but these GT4s, I think, are going to be equally close.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the clerk of the course will be hoping for a bit of a cleaner race as well. Let's have a look at the GT4s in action, shall we, when we shoot straight to a hot lap with Dave yourself talking us through it.
So here we are across the line at round 1 of the GT4 Championship here at Shanghai, or China GP, whichever way you want to call it, down towards turn 1. Super late on the brakes. This is where changing your brake bias in the car can really help a little bit of rotation. You can see I've obviously pushed it quite far back in A to try and get a bit of that mid-corner rotation there. Into turns 3 and 4 yet again. See, it's all about getting the car to rotate, but the mid-engine of this car really providing good traction exit there, not a lot of spin. This track might not favour them cars of the front engine. It might struggle with a little bit of rotation. Down towards turn 6 here, see I just missed the apex slightly, pushing it a bit on brakes, but yet again maximising the exit, listening to that V10 just scream out. Into turn 7, hug the inside. You can see a few little bumps there, but nothing too major. But hugging that inside all the way through in towards turn 8, and yet again the same. Want to hug that curve the whole way around. I don't want to run it too mid-corner because you can see turn 9 is very tight, and I want to go at the same steering angle through turn 9, roll it into turn 10, so I don't have to try and use them as two separate corners there. Down towards turn 11 here, as late as you dare on the brakes, but I'm going to actually take quite a lot of entry curb here. Second gear, you can see the car gets a little bit unsettled, but not too bad at all. Into turn 12, this right-hander, and then it opens up into turn 13. I would still regard this as one corner, but on the track map, it's down as two corners. You can see how early I was to try and get on the throttle there. You want to be as early as possible, because any time lost there is just going to mean that you're not quite going to get your top end speed at the end of this straight. This is going to be a really, really crucial overtaking opportunity during the race with that slipstream down the straight. You can see nearly top end of 6th gear, down towards turn 14, super tight hairpin. That is, let's face it, going to be a bit of a bottleneck, especially in traffic. Super slow, probably one of the slowest corners on track. Into turn 16, which is surprisingly quick. Grab a little bit of curb on entrance, a little bit of curb on exit, and then all the way on the throttle across the line.
A delightful tour of the Shanghai International Circuit there, provided by yourself, Dave. And if anybody out there wondering, I recognise that track, well, you might have watched F1 in the past, and this is obviously the home of the Chinese Grand Prix. I don't think it's been hosted there over the past 2 years, obviously, with everything that's been going on, but this is the track that normally is raced there. Now, Dave, you took us round in that lap in an Audi R8. The cars are currently in the background doing qualifying, but it's a long lap, so we haven't really got any representative times. We've got one or two, but nothing too major at the moment. But you were obviously taking us round in an Audi R8, weren't you? And, you know, there's plenty of different cars. We're actually looking at one of the Aston Martins here for Chris Shepherd. How have you sort of minimised the difference in the cars? Because obviously some cars will naturally be front engine, mid engine, you know, they're all going to be rear wheel drive, but some might be quicker on the straight. You spent a lot of time, haven't you, working towards the balance of power?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to show you the spreadsheet that was on the go to try and get them even. Yeah, it involved a lot of laps in all the cars, on all the tracks, and include other tracks to make sure that was right. And yeah, basically ended up where all the cars are evened out using restrictors to the engine, so no extra additional weight is added to the car, because then, you know, you start to add different variables in, like the braking zones and the weight corners, whereas I just basically want to make all the cars as even as possible in the power unit and make the power to weight right for each car. So all the cars are give or take within a few tenths on every track, but that isn't to say there's certain cars that are going to be faster on certain tracks. So, you know, for me, I got to delightfully do the hot lap in the R8 because I'm not bothered about it being the fastest car. I just thought it sounded the best, if I'm honest, Jack. So I chose the R8. And yeah, I'm probably expecting the McLaren or possibly the Aston to be the quicker of the cars here tonight. They're a little bit faster down the straight than the R8. But then later on in the season, the R8 has its stronger tracks as well. So it really is going to be hard to call, and it might come down to the final race to really decide it. But yeah, there's definitely characteristics of different cars. Like the R8 mid-engined, really good traction out of corners. The Aston, for me, is a little bit understeery and pushes the nose a lot. So in race trim, yes, it may be fast in a qualifying lap, but once that gets into a race, whether that car, if it's not running its perfect line, or if, you know, it needs to take evasive action, that car might feel a little bit more sluggish to change that direction than, like, on-screen Ryan Elliott's 570 or the R8. So, honestly, Jack, I can't call how this is going to go tonight. All I can say is, when I've bopped them, they're very, very even. It's all going to come down to the driver and the way them can pedal that car.
Yeah, and we look forward to seeing how that happens. And obviously, you have worked hard on it, but at the moment, the McLarens are looking fairly strong with the Audis, aren't they? The Aston Martins and the BMWs, maybe not quite so much, but there isn't, you know, not everybody set their representative lap times just yet. Jack McIntyre is going purple in Sector 1 at the moment. Now, he's on top of the order as well in his McLaren, but Jordan Brennan there mixing it up with the McLarens. He's currently in the Audi, and he's about a 10th off as well. 0.171 seconds off Jack McIntyre in the lead. Dan Zelos, though, in the McLaren, very close in 3rd place, and then you get a bit of a gap to Ryan Elliot and 4th. Scott Bugner rounds out the top 5. Now, Scott Bugner was an interesting one, Dave, wasn't he? Because he really flew right under the radar of the touring cars. I think it's unfair to say he was pretty much nowhere in the Ginettas, but he definitely wasn't as strong as he was when he turned up for the touring cars. All of a sudden, he was going into the last round in 4th position, ahead of a lot of the big names, the likes of Max Edmondson, Callum Newsham, and he's still ahead of Max Edmondson and Callum Newsham, isn't he? Because he's currently in 5th place. Newsham is in 6th, Edmondson in 7th. He's done a fantastic job.
Yeah, and you know what I think is the real interesting thing about the GT4 here is that in the touring cars, I think there was only really Jordan Brennan and Max Edmondson who we would regard as being teammates. But Scott Bugner, Dan Zelos, and Ryan Elliot have all gone, you know what, we've seen the advantage to having teammates on the grid. Why don't we make a bit of a go of it in GT4 and see if it works? So tonight, we might see a little bit of that tow helping, maybe to help pull away the gap. It's starting to get a bit like involving the team into the championship, if you like. But for me, a guy we haven't mentioned yet is Chris Shepherd, who is currently down 8th place in the Aston Martin. Now, on the timing sheets prior to this starting up, he is an absolute rocket ship of a driver. And yet again, a bit like a Scott Bugner is going to really come into here and set the time sheets alight. So Chris Shepherd's definitely one to watch for tonight as well.
Yeah, as Callum Newsham just goes ahead of Scott Bugner. Clearly didn't like my comments of being behind him, so he's gone and put a decent lap time in. Chris Shepherd, yeah, I mean, he was introduced to the series, I think, by Ryan Elliot, Rich was saying before, wasn't he? And Ryan, considering him an extremely good sim racer, and considering Ryan is a pretty damn good sim racer, we've got our hands full, I believe, with Chris Shepherd. He's not setting the lap times quite alight as we might have expected, but I think he has just come out of the pit. So this is his out lap. He's starting another flying lap, which is why he's 1.3 seconds down. He hasn't quite put it together yet, but he hasn't got much of a tow ahead of him. Right at the beginning of the session, when we were going through the hot lap, me and you noted that everybody was pretty close together, and we speculated maybe it's because everybody wanted to get a tow from each other. They've backed off now. There is quite a gap, especially Brennan to Elliot. Brennan is currently halfway down the back straight. Elliot's about to go onto it, so they're not really going to take any advantage from any of the tow. So do you reckon they maybe just thought they were holding each other up in the end, and it's just better to try and just get on with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very particular to the driver whether or not they find the tow that advantageous. And I mean, a track like this that has such a long straight, you would think surely it has to be advantageous, but the beginning of the track is that tight and twisty, and it's that hard to find apexes when you're following the driver that close. It can actually mean you set a very, very similar lap time just because you don't feel confident in where you're positioning the car. So some drivers really, thrive in having a tow, and they'll go a good 4 or 5 tenths faster. Other drivers might find they're about a similar lap time, if not a bit slower. So it is a bit of a driver preference. And looking at it, I would say Ryan Elliot is a bit more just get his head down, let's go, and I just want to get a lap time on the board.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's very much the Max Verstappen way of doing it, isn't it? He's not bothered at all about what's going on. Just make sure you get out there and do your lap. Everybody else can sort of fall over each other as and when they do. Mick Sutton then on your screens at the moment. He's starting another lap now. His previous lap hasn't been quite as good. He hasn't been able to hook it up. Andy Carroll's put in 2 green sectors, but I don't think his third was good enough to move him up the order and challenge for the top 10. Andy Dorman, who's been in and amongst the drivers of the day. But of course, the driver of the day prize has changed, hasn't it, quite significantly, Dave? Because it was, for the first 2 series or championships, whatever you want to call it, the Ginettas and the touring cars, it was a nice valeting kit provided by our lovely sponsors at PowerMax. And today, and I'm guessing for the next championship as well, although it hasn't been confirmed, we've changed the AOC Gaming 7.1 surround sound headphones, which is a brilliant prize as well. And I think that's probably a signal for us that we can start nominating multiple the drivers that have already won it, sort of thing. Because we always like to try and give it to someone who hadn't won it before, to try, because obviously we don't want Andy Dorman to walk away with 4 balloting kits when everybody else hasn't had any. But now he got an opportunity to win some headphones, slightly different prize.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know the weather is particularly nice, and I think we're both feeling the heat sat here in the sim box at the moment. But there's only so many times you can wash your car, and it's just nice to bring something fresh along for the drivers around. Them are thinking, right, I really need to perform because yes, I've already won a valet, but fancy a set of headphones as well. So it is nice to do that, and it's also nice to bring another brand along as well, supporting League of Champions as well. So yeah, it's good in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. So and please remember, a minute and a half to go of this qualifying. But speaking of driver of the round, if you out there are supporting your drivers, or you have an idea of maybe who you want to give or nominate, shall we say, is probably a good word for it, driver of the round, is somebody that you think has really stood out since as you've been watching this stream, because me and Dave don't catch everything. Tom doesn't catch everything on the cameras, although he does a damn good job of covering most of the fantastic action at the front. But you might see at the if you're in watching this elsewhere and you're keeping an eye on a driver who's gone from 15th up to 8th and we haven't caught it, then put a comment. Put a comment in the YouTube chat. Let us know what we're missing, and let us know who you think deserves to be the driver of the day, because at the end of the day, you guys are watching this just as much as me and Dave, and we want to have your input. So please do comment in the YouTube or Facebook chat, wherever you're watching this from, who you're supporting. Give a shout out. We'll try and read as much as we can. Unfortunately, this is streamed over about 10 different profiles, so we will try and keep an eye out all 10, but sometimes it's impossible. So we'll try our best to give a couple of shout outs.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just looking at the moment, Jack, and I'm quite surprised. Chris Shepherd was setting very, very good lap times, and at the moment, them lap times just aren't falling for him, and he's found himself back in 8th place so far, so a little bit off where he wants to be, I would say. It's looking like Jack McIntyre is actually sat on provisional pole at the moment with a 2:12.7, so a very good lap time, but it'll be interesting to hear if he takes the pole. He didn't do that much practice, and whether he's just really gelling with his car and he's liking the balance of it.
It will be interesting to see. Ryan Elliot, now he was quite quick in practice. He was only 2nd quickest in practice. He's only 2nd quickest now as well. But the driver that was quickest in practice is Chris Shepherd, all the way down in 9th position. And he's crossed the checkered flag, so it's not going to be an improvement by him. He's going to have to do some work in the race. But of course, it doesn't matter that he's brand new, because this is essentially a new championship, isn't it? It's new for the Ginettas, the touring cars. They don't matter. He can still come in here, win an SR5 if he wins the overall GT4 championship. So I'm sure he'll be keeping an eye on it. Dave, do tell me. Oh, Jack McIntyre should put a purple sector 2. This could be very quick. Callum Newsom's put in 2 green sectors as well. So there will be some improvements potentially before we end this session. Jordan Brennan has ended in 3rd place, so I'll keep my question for another minute or two, Dave, because I'm sure there'll be another opportunity to ask it. But look at this, Jack McIntyre, he's got a good run on the last corner. Not quite as good as he was hoping for, but it's still, I think, a slight improvement. Callum Newsom's crossed the line as well. It's not an improvement for him. Dan Zelos is still in 4th position. All 4 of those drivers have now taken the checkered flag. Scott Bugner comes across the line, and it's still 6th position for him, so no one really doing anything on that last lap, even though they were all greens and purple sectors flying about. Dave, are they available to change cars throughout the season, or are they sort of stuck with the car that they nominated for this first race?
No, they are not allowed to change now the season's underway. So they were allowed, I believe, 1 change prior to the championship starting. But once the championship's live, that's it, it's locked in. But all the drivers had all the cars, all the setups for each car, and all had all the tracks as well. So I imagine all the drivers have put in plenty practice on the different tracks to find out what's good and what's not. And yeah, that's what the decision's been made from. But it looks like Jack Mack has made the right decision.
He has indeed, and hopefully he'll make the right decision by coming in to have a nice little chat with you as well, because we always like to have a chat with the podium sitter, but he hasn't come into the interview waiting room just yet. So I'll tell you what, this is probably a good time to talk about the Academy, because obviously we haven't mentioned the Academy so far, and that's blasphemous, but here it is on your screen. The VRRC Academy. So this is if you're watching this with us tonight. I hope you are, the League of Champions. You maybe want to enter, you want to get your hands on the Sim Rig 5, but you don't think you've quite got the skill set yet to be confident enough to race at the front with the fast guys here. Well, there's every opportunity for you to learn some here in a variety of cars: the Formula 4, Audi TT Cup, Mazda MX-5, and the K2 and 420R. 4 different disciplines to teach you 4 different styles of driving, essentially. At the moment, we're on the Formula 4, and Dave, you're one of the driver coaches, aren't you? Talk us through it a little bit.
Yeah, so when we set the academy up, it was basically make a decision on the tracks. Don't change the tracks throughout the season. Just get the drivers used to different disciplines of car, and the cars have to be really varied as well. So you can see high aero, single seater. We've got the TT there, which has got push to pass feature. So it's a bit like KERS, and it gets you used to Le Mans disciplines as well. So yeah, you know what? It's a brilliant championship to be part of. That really just builds you that confidence and really gets you up to speed faster than what you would be just sitting at the back of grids all the time.
Exactly. We're going to go have a quick chat to our... Well, I say quick chat. We're going to actually hear from our sponsors first. Okay, no, we are going to go into the race, apparently, because we've spent so much time talking about the Academy that we haven't quite got enough time to chat to Jack McIntyre, which is a bit of a shame. But if he stays where he is, we'll be chatting to him after the end of the race. Apparently, we've only got 30 seconds, so we have closed down the gap between qualifying and the race, and therefore we don't really have enough time for him. But that may change next week, you never know. But as I said, if he stays in this position, then Dave will be chatting to Jack McIntyre a little bit later on. So, Shanghai circuit with a variety of GT4s. The first multi-class, well, it's not really multi-class, the multi-car race coming up as the red lights come on, the engine notes rise, and for the first time today, here on the VRRC League of Champions, we are away racing. It's a great start by Jack McIntyre. Ryan Elliot trying to squeeze up the inside. There is every opportunity as we're going to go into the right-hander. I think Jack McIntyre is going to be caught out. Ryan Elliot to the outside now as the background group as well, going nicely in the mix. Jordan Brennan, I think, is trying to get into the mix there as well. It's a huge send up the inside by Bugner on Newsham. Newsham goes wide, but he's going to have the inside. He keeps it on the circuit for now, but Bugner slots his way into the top 4. A great start by him as Newsham gets his tail out.
Yeah, that was a very dramatic start, but actually it was relatively clean. What I did notice is Dan Zelos seemed to be really caught napping there off the start. Got swallowed by 2 drivers, I believe. And also, what a great start by Ryan Elliot to get up the inside of Jack Mack going into turn 1. Oh, there's Dan Zelos, look again, a little bit slow off that hairpin right-hander. I wonder whether this is maybe a case of running that traction control slightly higher than other drivers, and it's really just bogged his car maybe. Maybe just another tactic there.
I was going to say, I think he's whacked his wheel up hard, whacked his wheel sideways, and that's Dan Zelos going for a little bit of a spin, unfortunately, and collecting one of the drivers. I think that's Mick Sutton, unfortunately. No fault of either of the drivers, as far as we can tell, but that's Dan Zelos pretty much out of this race already, if you're talking about race victories here. Up the inside is Jordan Brennan, Jack McIntyre, who really is being caught a little bit napping here, and that'll be lovely for Ryan Elliot to see in the rearview mirrors, because Jack Mack and Jordan Brennan now fighting nicely. Now, of course, Jordan Brennan will have the slipstream of Jack McIntyre. They'll both have a little bit of a tow of Ryan Elliot, but not as significant as if Brennan hadn't lunged up the inside going into the boot section. Look at this, Ryan Elliot clean and away, but Brennan crawling all over the back of Jack McIntyre. Could be a late lunge into the right-hander. The tow is powerful around Shanghai. We're about to see how powerful. Brennan comes off the power early to send the car into the apex. The other 2 drivers get a little bit wide, but here we go. Max Bird being overtaken by the ever-increasing positions of Shepherd. I think that's Chris Shepherd. I was going to call him Callum Shepherd, but it's not. It's Chris Shepherd. Moving up from 9th into 6th position. But he goes straight on into the pits. Chris Shepherd, and I think potentially a drive-through for maybe jumping to start. I'm not sure. I think I keep getting a buzz in my ear, and it's nothing to do with penalties or anything, so we have no idea why Chris Shepherd has gone into the pits, but we will try and find out in due course. So, after the first lap, a very long lap, Ryan Elliot leads the way ahead of pole sitter Jack McIntyre. Jordan Brennan in 2nd place. Scott Bugner's moved his way up to 4th. Max Edmondson in 5th. Chris Shepherd is up to 6th. pretty sure we just saw him in the pit lane. No, it was Dan Zelos going into the pit lane. Ignore everything I said about Chris Shepherd. It was Zelos going into the pits.
Yeah, I'm going to confuse you a bit
Max
more.
Bird.
I believe
I'm just going to walk out.
I believe it was Max Bird going into the pit, so I can only imagine that was a possible drive-through. Oh, look at this for change of position. Chris Shepherd battling very, very hard here, or Max Edmondson, but that looked like a great switch back there by, I believe, Max Edmondson. Chris Shepherd had the overrun. Max Edmondson managed to brake hard enough and dip his nose back up the inside. But this sort of battle is really going to be bringing Callum Newsham back into that battle. We saw him get probably pretty hard done by at the start of the race with a few little scuffs and bangs there, but he's really putting the pressure on. Look at this. Shepherd getting a little bit sideways there out of the left-hander, but Callum Newsham actually having to back out that throttle even with the momentum he had because he didn't have anywhere to go.
Yeah, Shepherd really, although he was singing, obviously his car was singing, he was singing in the practice. Ever since then, it's been a little bit tough, and he gets the back end there again, and that's going to lose him a whole heap of time. And I imagine places with Callum Newsham crawling all over the back of him in the Audi. I think he's going to be in a bit of trouble here, but it's just the back keeps snapping on him. He's really not comfortable with the balance of the car at the moment, is Shepherd. As McIntyre has clearly got it switched on, though. His car's warmed up and he's ready to go. Ahead of Ryan Elliot around the outside. Oh, I'll tell you what, that is deep. That is very deep, and he's just about held it onto the circuit on the exit. I tell you what, actually, this could be a fantastic move, Dave. I thought he had the move done and dusted. He went in a little bit too hot, but he's come off the corner and managed to get the power down. He's on the inside for the last corner, and he's got the race lead back from Ryan Elliot. Jordan Brennan dropping off just a touch from these two drivers as we're now focusing on Newsham, who didn't manage to get past Callum Shepherd. I think Newsham just got caught on the exit, didn't he? Because he had the overspeed, but it wasn't quite happening. As Elliot and McIntyre still swapping positions, McIntyre on the inside. I'll tell you what, if Elliot keeps this around the outside, it's going to be a hell of a move because it's a very, very long right-hander. And predictably, he doesn't, but he may well get the wider entry, which gives him the better exit out of the corner. This is inviting Jordan Brennan to come and say hello again. Scott Bugner will be rubbing his hands in fourth because he may well get a chance to fight for a race victory if they keep falling over each other.
Yeah, you know what, I was thinking exactly the same. This is all playing into the hands of Jordan Brennan, just getting him a little bit closer. You can see a battle here between Callum Newsham and Chris Shepherd. This is developing quite nicely, and actually it's bringing Andy Dorman into the picture, who's running behind the M4. I must point out, I think the M4 is probably, the most roundabout happy car, should I say. It's quite easy to get the back end out, so I imagine Dorman might be running that TC quite high, which can aid him in certain places, but that M4 is probably one of the more difficult cars to get that real good traction out of a corner with. So that's not going to be the strong point we see of the BMW, but I tell you what, it is good down the straight, so keep an eye on that car.
We will indeed. At the moment, I'd say the McLaren's probably the strongest car around this Shanghai circuit, as 3 out of the top 4 are currently running in it, and we know well that Dan Zelos was running well at one point. Obviously not in this race, unfortunately, but it is a strong car. The Aston Martin seems to be slightly struggling, so hopefully it'll do a switcheroo as we go through the rest of the season. In fact, all the way down here is Brad Smith in the Aston Martin. They do look cool, I have to say, and actually, I'm not sure who's this? Max Bird is dropping off the circuit again, and remember, he was in the pit lane a bit earlier on, even though I called him Dan Zelos and Shepherd and everybody else under the sun. Huge move at the inside there by Shepherd on Newsham, who did manage to get past. Shepherd going a little bit wide, Newsham getting that cutback, knowing exactly what Shepherd was doing, I fear, and just letting him go straight up the inside. Outbrake yourself. Okay, I'll just take the apex and take the position back and see where we end up. But these two having a fantastic little scrap.
Yeah, I can't help but think this is a little bit what I was on about earlier. I think that Aston is really well suited for a good hot lap, and it's as quick as any of the other cars out there. But in race trim, it's maybe just not quite got the agility to make them moves open up. You saw Callum Newsham saw that Chris had gone for the move. He just braked and took the nose back in. Them are the elements that I think that Aston's probably not quite as strong. But you can see there, great traction out of that left-hander. Got on the throttle really early, and actually he might be in a position here where he's close enough to go for a lunge here, going towards this right hairpin. Will we see him show a nose here, or will he just keep tucked in? No, actually it looks like he's going to stay quite tucked in, but look at his apex speed. Apex speed just a little bit faster there than the R8. I tell you what, this is a battle for 6th and 7th, but it could be for 1st and 2nd.
Yeah, and we'll see how long the battle continues as well, because they've got 12 minutes left to go. Remember, we do have two 20-minute races, the second of which is a reverse grid, which is very exciting, usually. The drivers might not appreciate it all the time, but it is normally very exciting as Dan Zelos goes past Simon Thorpe. That's for 12th position, so the recovering Zelos attempting to score some points on the board, but that is crucial. You're only, when it comes down to championship standings at the end of a championship, if your worst round is still everybody else's pretty decent round, then you got a good chance, haven't you? Basically, you want a fantastic average. The last thing you need to do is to fall out the top 10 and score badly as your worst round. So it really is about recovering and about sort of damage limitation as soon as you have a spin on the first lap. Ryan Elliot is under attack here by Jordan Brennan. So Elliot actually having to look backwards before he looks forwards now. He had a fantastic race start, but it looks like he's gone far too hot into the apex. Or is that just another line? I'm not entirely sure, but he's still managed to hold on to that second place. He had a brilliant start, Dave. It hasn't been quite what he expected the last 2 or 3 laps, has it? But there's every opportunity he could flick the switch and maybe get some consistent running in. Maybe he, following Jack McIntyre, will learn a thing or two and try and push the car on.
Yeah, you know what? I actually think maybe this is a case of tyres starting to come into the race. Maybe the McLaren's wearing them front tyres a little bit hard in the R8, but Jordan's definitely hanging on to the back of Ryan Elliot here. The slipstream's obviously helping a little bit with that, but both drivers are driving very well. It's allowing Jack just to stretch his legs a bit. Currently him setting the fastest lap, not quite on the last lap, but the lap before with the 2:13.0. These two drivers behind are around the 2:13.2 mark, so not far off the pace at all there. Scott Bugner lapping also very, very consistent, just slightly off the pace of the two in front. But if they start a battle any harder than they currently are, Scott Bugner is definitely in a chance here to scrape a podium position. But I'll go back to Dan Zelos quickly. That's in 12th place at the moment. So obviously he's outside that position at the moment. Oh, as we see there, actually Jordan Brennan with a brilliant move up the inside. Oh, and Ryan Elliott's going for the move back up the inside. That was very brave into that slow corner. And actually, that's really worked well for Ryan Elliott. But that's going to now mean that he's the leading car going back onto the start-finish line straight. So the slipstream's going to be in play. But no, Jordan Brennan's not going to have that either. He's going to put it up the inside of the McLaren. That's going to get him on the outside line. Ryan Elliott's going to show him where the outside of the corner is. But is Jordan Brennan going to get the tuck back underneath or get the slipstream? And is this going to be a really good opportunity for an overtake going down towards the hairpin?
If they carry on like this, I think Jack McIntyre might as well just put the cruise control on, because these two are fighting. Look at the gap it's created. They were right on top of the race leader at one point, but now Ryan Elliott is having to defend very hard. There's absolutely no quarter given between them as the two cars bump wheels, end up going towards the outside of the circuit. It's like I'm watching the F1 at Silverstone the first half a lap. It's fantastic, isn't it? Ryan Elliott keeps the race lead ahead of Jordan Brennan for now. Jack McIntyre is getting away with this somewhat. In fact, they're probably outside of the slipstream now, so McIntyre won't even have to worry about that too much. And I have to say as well, I've been keeping an eye on the Facebook chat. Michelle Dunn says that Jordan Brennan, she's given it a very early shout for driver of the day, but the reason is Jordan Brennan, because it's his birthday tomorrow as well. So hopefully this race doesn't end on a sour note, and hopefully he continues to enjoy it for the next 8.5 minutes.
Yeah, definitely that. And to be fair, he is battling very, very well here at the moment. So he is possibly in the very, very good contention for a driver of the day. I'll just quickly touch upon what I was going to say about Dan Zelos before the lunges started going there on the lap before. Dan Zelos claims himself he is definitely not a rear-wheel drive expert. You know, he's a very, very good driver in the Mini JCW in real life, and proven himself many times in the likes of touring cars and mini esports as well. But he says there's something about the rear wheel driving, especially on a sim, just doesn't quite click with him always. So he knew he was going to struggle a little bit in this championship, but it's what I like to see. He's got the spirit. He was like, you know what, I don't really care where I'm going to finish. I'm going to give it a go. It's good for the sponsors. Let's just go out there and have some fun. So that's nice to see. But he is outside of that top 10 position, so that it's going to be a real struggle for him to try and catch up to Mick Sutton, who's currently in 10th place, to get any chance of a reverse grid race. Because otherwise, I think you'll agree, Jack, that's going to be a fair tough race for him to try and pull back even a podium position in that second race.
Yeah, it's a long way to go, isn't it? But it's interesting that Zelos says that he's a front-wheel drive specialist. Obviously, you do get front-wheel drive specialists. That's fair enough. But the fact that he really doesn't get on with the rear-wheel drive is slightly strange, because when you think of racing drivers, you think of rear-wheel drive, don't you, really? And if anything, people have to adapt to front-wheel drive. But clearly not the case for Dan Zelos. It's the other way around. Fair play to him. This is Jordan Brennan going around the outside, or attempting to go around the outside yet again, of Ryan Elliot down into the hairpin. The slipstream is strong, Dave, but it isn't everything, is it? It's not like DRS in F1. It doesn't mean it's an automatic overtake. It just gives you the opportunity to make an overtake, which I suppose is what DRS is supposed to do, isn't it? It's not just supposed to be gifting free positions. It's supposed to come into effect right at the end of the sort of straight line. There's an opportunity for you to outbrake the other driver. And that's what we're seeing here in these GT4s. There is an opportunity for Jordan Brennan to try and put Ryan Elliot offline and to actually get the move done. But it isn't a given. And Ryan Elliot is doing absolutely everything in his power and doing it very, very well, I have to say. Keeping the Audi and now the ever-approaching McLaren of Scott Bugner into play as well. But Elliot putting his car exactly where it needs to be. It's just about it's just quick enough in a straight line. That's Chris Shepherd going extremely slowly, and Andy Dorman going past as well. I think Callum Newsham and unfortunately Shepherd have had a little bit of contact throughout the past 30 seconds or so. So those guys have now unfortunately lost the place to Andy Dorman. I'm sure they'll be back hunting it down. Anyway, Dan Zelos going through on Brett Smith for 11th position. And the McLaren moving forward slowly then. It's not going to be quite quick enough to try and make any sort of points back. But crucially as well, you're talking about Dan Zelos before, sort of getting into the spirit, getting out there for the championship and everything like that. We do have the overall sort of race, the finale of the League of Champions to think about as well. And Dan Zelos obviously wants to be in that finale for the opportunity to win a direct drive wheel, doesn't he? Not just another opportunity for an SR5 or an SR3 chassis, because of course he already has one of them.
Yeah, exactly that. And actually, you know what? I started to rule Dan out a little bit for this reverse grid, but this actually, looking at the timing sheets, this might be on. Dan Zelos currently setting lap times around the late 2:13s. Mick Sutton, his fastest lap is a 2:15.7. Oh, Andy Dorman there. I wonder whether that was a little bit of what I was saying about that BMW. It's very tail happy. On here's actually Brennan looking again. Seems to be always in this part of the track where he's got Ryan Elliot lined up here. A little bit of a bump there in the braking zone, but I think that was Ryan really just putting the anchors on to try and make the apex there. I tell you what, since they started a battle, their lap times have really plummeted off as well. So this is really interesting here to see Brennan going a little bit wide there, but actually I think losing maybe a little bit of time down this straight there, sacrificing his run. I'm surprised Scott Bugner hasn't managed to get that little bit closer to this battle. They are losing about a second off from what they were doing at the start of the race. That's why Jack Mack is absolutely checked out from this at the moment. And actually, I say about Dan Zelos, if we can get to that quickly, Mick Sutton has gone down to 11th place. So Dan Zelos has managed to catch already up to Mick Sutton. That had to have been a mistake by Mick Sutton to lose about 4 or 5 seconds there. Dan Zelos has found himself provisionally in pole at the start of the second race.
Yeah, which will be massive news and a big relief for him as well, because obviously he didn't have the most ideal start to this one. Just having a look forward again, and Brennan and Elliot, you're right about Bugner. I think he may have had a little bit of a mistake at some point during the last lap, but we didn't see. But you obviously spoke about how sort of off they are from the overall pace. If you have a look at Jack McIntyre's last lap, which obviously you can't on if you're watching at home, but he did a 2:12.5, whereas Jordan Brennan last lap was a 2:14 dead. Ryan Elliott was a 2:14.3, so they were about a second and a half off of McIntyre, who in the last lap put a purple sector 1 and a green sector 2 together. So it's not like the track is going slower. If anything, McIntyre is going quicker. And there's a reason, that's the reason, I suppose, for the 6.5 second gap that McIntyre now holds over Brennan and Elliott. Brennan now through, Dave. I'm going to ask if you're brave enough to say that he's going to extend the lead, or do you think Elliott's going to come back? It's a brave person to say that Elliott won't come back fighting, but Brennan did seem to have the pace on him. Put you on the spot here, haven't I?
Yeah, it's a very difficult one. I think if Ryan can get back into that zone he was in qualifying, there's a potential chance that Ryan can find himself in a good position to battle for second place again. But the question is, if they end up in that position, you see where Scott Bugner is. It doesn't take much at all for them to really start battling and then end up in a position where Scott Bugner is trying to pounce on them both. So, yeah, I think at the moment it's looking like, as long as Brennan can keep this on the road, keep that consistency there, actually it's looking all right for Brennan for second place. Currently set his last lap time of a 2:13.7, which is not a bad lap time. Ryan Elliot at 2:14.3. So Ryan Elliott's actually really struggling here for whatever reason. I don't know whether his tyres maybe aren't quite working for him, or can he possibly have underfueled and he's just trying to coast it a little bit? I very, very much doubt it, but there's definitely something not quite with the way, quite right with the way Ryan's driving at the moment. So it's definitely an interesting one to watch. I'm noticing quite a heated drive between Callum Newsham and Chris Shepherd here. They are battling for positions almost constantly throughout this this race. And I tell you what, it's still for 6th and 7th place, and that's allowed Edmondson to really get up the road as well. So, yeah, brilliant battles wherever we look on this grid at the moment, Jack.
It bodes well, doesn't it? And of course, the one thing we haven't mentioned, there's such a lot of things to mention when we're introducing a new series, the League of Champions, but one thing is the fact that these guys won't have any ballast on.
Yeah.
First and only time they'll be in the GT4s without ballast on is tonight. The next 3 meetings, they'll all have an assortment of ballast. And you changed it between the Super Cup, the Ginettas, and the touring cars. What's the deal with this time round? Are they going to have, is it 1st to 6th? Is it top 10 will have ballast? What's the deal?
So you're going to like this, Jack, because it's nice and easy to remember. It's wait for 8. So
wait for 8.
Wait for 8. So the top 8 positions in this championship will have ballast. It's still 60 kilograms as it was for touring car, but from testing, 60 kilograms is worth a little bit more of lap time with that ballast in. So we're looking around the... Actually, will this be Jack Mack's last lap, as I was just saying that? Believe it is. In fact, he's going to cross the line. He takes the checkered flag. That was very, very close to having an extra lap there, but he's managed to crawl across the line. Jordan Brennan there taking home 2nd place. Ryan Elliot holding on to 3rd place. That was a brilliant drive and a brilliant race to watch from our point of view. And Callum Newsham just managing to keep ahead of Chris Shepherd there. I think that's a battle that we're definitely going to see heat up more in race 2. I think you'd agree, Jack.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. So we'll keep out for next week for the wait for 8, because it sounds great. So I think, Dave, we're going to have to very quickly, because the timings are so tight tonight. We are watching Dan Zelos, who will be on pole position for 2nd place. But you've got an interview to conduct with our race winner and pole sitter, obviously, Jack McIntyre, and the top 3. We've only got 3 minutes before the start of the next race. So by all means, take it away.
Yeah, we will indeed. We'll jump straight to our P3 finisher, Ryan Elliot. Just struggling a little bit there for rhythm at the end, but still a brilliant podium position and really seemed to have a very strong start from the line.
Yeah, is what it is. So it was still a solid race. Like, obviously, it's only one of 8, so there's still plenty to go ahead. I just haven't got that last little bit for Jack. But even still, we had a nice battle at the start. Really clean with Jack. But yeah, oh well, we can move forward in the next one. That's all I'm looking for.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing how you get on in race 2 there, Ryan. We'll move forward on our P2 finisher, Jordan Brennan. You know, there was doubts on whether the R8 was going to quite have the straight line performance, but I tell you what, that actually looks like quite a capable race machine in race trim.
Yeah, out of the corners it just seems to just pull, so you can get the gap to break the toe. But yeah, one thing I noticed is the grip didn't seem to drop off, so you were able to still put quick laps in towards the end.
Yeah, well, it's great to have feedback like that, because obviously we don't know what the cars are like over a race stint, but you'll be pretty pleased with it with a P2 finish, and really looking forward to how you're going to get on getting through the pack in race 2.
Yeah, cheers, thank you.
And we must apologise, Jack, for not managing to get a pole lap interview in, but we still managed to end up talking to you anyway. Huge congratulations on taking a first win and in a McLaren. I'm sure that probably means a fair bit.
Thank you. Yeah, it does. I struggled in the 2CRs and previously in League Champions too. But then when I saw there was a McLaren on the grid that I could choose, I was kind of jumping for joy. Obviously, all the racing I do with Rocket and with support of people like McLaren Customer Racing and Silverstone Composites and everyone. I love these cars and they really suit the way I drive. So it was a good race with Ryan at the start, and then got out front and just had fun and put some laps in, and hopefully another one in race 2.
I've got to quickly ask you, I noticed the countdown's very quick. Is there any cars out there that is actually worrying you that you maybe didn't think had pace but are actually proven quite quick machinery?
The Aston surprised me a lot. I tested them all. I tested them all, and they're all reasonably equal. But the McLaren for me was just the best feeling. But I really struggled in the Aston, but it seems to be quick. So we'll see. I mean, I'm happy with the McLaren, so hopefully they'll take me all the way.
Well, I'll let you get your head down, Jack. Congratulations on taking first place, and see what you can do in race 2.
Cheers, thank you.
And
I think I just about did it there, Jack.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was Dave talking to all 3 of our drivers and getting it all done as well before we cut the race lights on the screen, which is quite impressive as well. We're running through it today, aren't we, with these shortened intervals, and the race lights are already starting to come on, so let's get on with race number 2. Top 10 reverse grid, and we are away now. There we go, for the second time on a Tuesday. A very long light, but it's not a bad start for our race pole sitter, Dan Zelos. Andy Dorman and Andy Carroll are getting nice and close to each other around the outside, 2 by 2 into T1. But at the moment, Dan Zelos has driven away quite substantially in this contact. That's Newsham getting binned. He can't get any luck, can he, Callum Newsham? It seems that every championship we've ever covered, he seems to be getting a bit punted off. Simon Thorpe is the other driver that we just saw off the circuit as well. Dan Zelos is away with that. Andy Dorman in second place. Chris Shepherd is now in third. Andy Carroll in fourth place. And Ryan Elliot into the top 5 already. So he was hoping to go forwards. He didn't mind that he was in second place. He's very much hoping to carry that on. But Dan Zelos, here he is. He's away with the fairies in terms of the gap for lap 1. And he's already given the safety car. The safety car has come out. And that'll be Richard Hayden, who's in charge of VRRC overall. He'll be driving the safety car. And to be honest, sometimes, Dave, I think he just throws us out because he wants to get on the sim.
Well, I could be wrong, but I don't think that is actually going to be the case because he's only thrown a virtual safety car. So obviously with the lap being over 2 minutes, that's normally plenty time for the drivers to rebunch, get a bit of composure, and then go again without having to bring the car out. So Rich is not going to get quite behind the wheel of his Mustang. I know he's loving the fact that his safety car's a Mustang at the moment. But yeah, you know what? This is not exactly what Dan Zelos needed, but he's got to be really quite grateful that he's managed to get himself back up in the 10th, get that reverse grid, and now in a position where he's holding first place at the moment. Chris Shepherd could be a one to watch there. We've seen that he does have serious pace out there, so if he can get past Dorman quickly enough, then who knows where this is going to end up.
Yeah, and we're looking at Callum Newsham, actually. Obviously, he was the driver that crashed. Now, we're going to get slightly technical with you now. So, if you don't know any internet terms, then you might not follow this. But essentially, ping is basically the lag. So, if another driver puts an input in, and your ping is bad, you won't see that input for a while, basically. Callum Newsham's has been pretty awful. You're looking for a ping at around 15 to 25 is pretty decent. Newsham's was over 1,000. And that is the first rule of a virtual safety car. I know the virtual safety car lights are out, but spinning and hitting each other as they come out is not the way to do a restart. Dan Zelos has pretty much nailed the way to do a restart. Andy Dorman is really dropped back all of a sudden. He's a full second behind Dan Zelos. A fantastic race start by Zelos. Chris Shepherd is in third place still. Andy Carroll in fourth. Ryan Elliot in fifth. So the top 5 haven't made any impact on each other on that race restart. Scott Bugner, Max Edmondson gotten past Simon Thorpe. So Simon Thorpe still in ninth place. Dorman and Shepherd nice and close. Zelos has checked out. Ryan Elliot gets past Andy Carroll. And I think there's another little car in there as well. I think Jack McIntyre is interested in getting in on the mix here as well. My stream is a little bit pixelated. I can't quite see who all the drivers are, but up the inside goes around the outside goes Ryan Elliot. Andy Carroll trying to force his way still through on the inside. He's going to be on the outside for the long left-hander. I think he's going to get hung out to dry by the incoming McLaren of Jack McIntyre.
Yeah, but look at the R8 by Jordan Brennan, also right on his tail. Might get hung out here around the left-hander. Will he be brave enough to put it up the inside, going this left? This is a very narrow braking zone. He is indeed. He's shown his nose. Brilliant move there by Brennan to get through the grid. That was crucial there. It's them little racing instincts there. If he didn't get past Carroll when Jack and Ryan both got through there, then it was race over for Jordan Brennan. So really good racecraft there from to actually find the gap and get through. Jack Mack also positioned his car brilliantly. We've seen the pace Jack's got. It's going to be really interesting to see whether he holds on to that and can close onto the back of Ryan Elliot. But here's Chris Shepherd using that slipstream, using that slippery Aston Martin shape to it over the BMW. But look at the grunt of the Beamer doing all it can to hold on to that. Beamer's probably one of the fastest cars down the straight. Chris Shepherd extremely late on the brakes. I can't quite believe he got that stop. Well, he didn't actually, did he? He didn't quite get that stop and rotated. Andy Dorman back through, and this is exactly what Dan Zelos needs to see. Just going to help him just keep that little bit more time and let him chill into this race a little bit more.
Yeah, he absolutely sent it, but he sent it via Hermes delivery, didn't he? Which meant it was, one, late, and two, thrown over the fence to be damaged. So, unfortunately, Shepherd is all the way down. Well, I say all the way down. He's dropped off. He's still in third place, but he has dropped off. He overestimated his brake pedal, I think, is what we're having a look there. As Jordan Brennan all over the back of Jack McIntyre. And I tell you what, Brennan's been, hopefully, it's his birthday tomorrow. I hope he's very much enjoying this evening because he looks like he's in some brilliant battles with some great drivers as well. And crucially, we saw a lot of fighting over the last race, didn't we? But it was all fairly clean. And, touch wood, I don't want it to be the commentator's curse, but it looked like this sort of driving that we, one, come to expect of these front-running drivers, and two, it's the most enjoyable as well from their perspective. The last thing they want is to be hitting people off or being hit off themselves. They want nice, clean racing, and that's what we've come to expect. That's what we've come to see here tonight.
Yeah, exactly that. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this race develops out. Make sure you get in that comms box to help us decide who you think deserves driver of the day from what you've seen so far. It's been actually a really clean race 1. Race 2, there's been a little bit of bumping here and there, but, get in the comment section, make sure you say who you reckon deserves to be driver of the day here. Scott Bugner very much on the back end of Brad Smith here. Max Edmondson's going to be watching this from behind going, you know what, this is a bit of me, I can take advantage of this. Just before the straight, this is exactly the about time. Ryan Elliot, I've noticed there with a move on Chris Shepherd on the timing sheet. So I don't know what's happened there. Chris Shepherd must have had a little slide or a mishap, but they are neck and neck. This is going to bring Jack Mack right in the equation. This is not going to go 3 abreast into the hairpin, is it? It is indeed. This is not going to work, this Jack. It's just not going to work.
It might go 3 into 1, but 1 don't necessarily come out. I'll tell you what, fair play to him.
Wow.
That was actually very, very good driving, wasn't it? Andy Dorman is probably looking at his rears and thinking, how on earth have I got 3 or 4 cars still on my rear tailpipe? Because that's surely, he was probably going into the hairpin thinking, these guys must be taking each other out, and it must make my job a little bit easier. All of a sudden, all 3 of them managed to slot through. So, brilliant. It was almost like synchronized swimming, wasn't it? The fact that the way they went in, broke at the same time, and turned nicely to follow each other around. Very impressive.
Yeah, it was. I didn't think that was going to work, but it worked perfectly. There's a move by Scott Bugner up the inside of Brad Smith. Nice and clean move, nice and easily done. Max Edmondson needs to take advantage of this while the cars are still a little bit bunched up here. He's looking quite racy. Can he find a move or find a gap up the inside of Brad Smith? But let's not take credit away. Brad Smith actually driving very, very well indeed at the moment.
Yeah, we're keeping an eye on those Facebook chats and YouTube chats as well, so please do make sure you tell us who you think your driver of the day is as we go through the rest of this race. As Brad Smith, I keep saying Brett Smith, it's because I know a Brett Smith, apologies to Brad. He's trying to defend his way from Max Edmondson, who hasn't quite sung today, has he? He's not quite Edmondson's way, isn't he? Whether or not he's just not quite put the practice in that the other drivers have, or whether it's just not quite sitting with him this evening. It's not, necessarily been as quick as we're used to seeing him. But Brad Smith doing a brilliant job here to hold him off for some good points as well. This is a fight in the top 10. Got a little bit wide there, and up the inside goes Edmondson. But again, carrying that speed is Smith, and carrying it well as well. Edmondson looked like he got the run on the inside, but closing the door was Smith, and Edmondson didn't fancy it.
Yeah, you know what, actually, really, really good drive here by Brad at the moment. Very impressive. Chris Shepherd, I've noticed, has actually just managed to get past Jack McIntyre for 4th place. This is a battle that is really heating up. Look at this, all chained up behind Andy Dorman. I bet Brennan's looking at this thing and, how can I take possible advantage of this? This is looking like a great time to make a bit of a bit of move past without actual raw pace on track. See what can happen here. This is 4 into the hairpin, and actually all managing to come out reasonably unscathed from that. I hope Jack Mack doesn't go put this up the inside and make this 3 abreast. He's going to hold it up the inside of at least Chris Shepherd there. But actually, that was a great way. I mean, how did 5 cars get through that hairpin without nearly any contact?
I mean, I made some strange noises there. Sorry, I'm not on the toilet. I'm just so tense about watching these cars go through that corner 3 or 4 wide, because you just don't want
that's brave.
anything to happen. And as you say, it's very brave. Bugner's got past Andy Carroll, and Shepherd still in 5th place, but we're not seeing the pace we expected from Shepherd. We expected a little bit more, and that's a very slippery back end there by Scott Bugner, as he just got past Andy Carroll. He's going to have to do all the work again. Jack McIntyre is now past Andy Dorman. Dorman, I think, was the cork in the bottle, shall we say, and he's unfortunately been uncorked as they're fighting in the background. That's Brennan on Shepherd. Shepherd defending. Brennan and the Audi on the outside. We're focusing on him at the moment. Tries to get that cut back. Good momentum out of the corner, that rear wheel drive. Maybe the traction control set slightly differently. Gets a good push. He's going to be on the outside now. How's the Audi grip? And he leans on those outside tyres. The tyre wall screaming to give him some peace, but he's got the move.
What a move.
Brilliant driving.
Yeah. That was such a move there by Brennan to make that work. Just judging that cut back perfectly and braving around the outside there, hoping that Chris Shepherd doesn't run it too far wide there. Chris just not quite finding his momentum here in the race. I imagine, though, this is not a reflection on what it's going to be like all season. I know the guy does a lot of practice, and he'll come back into the next round stronger than ever. And at the moment, you've got to remember, we'll have less weight going into the next round, crucially as well.
We mentioned it a lot so far, Dave. I think personally, my vote for driver of the day. We haven't had that much interaction on the chat, so please do let me know, change my mind, but I'm going to throw in Scott Bugner's name. I've seen Gareth Hall saying Jordan Brennan's name is my personal shout, but I've seen Gareth Hall on the YouTube say Scott Bugner hype train. So Scott Bugner for driver of the day is Gareth Hall's shout. I don't know about you. That's a huge cut by Andy Carroll, making up his own circuit there. But my personal shout, I'd say right now, is Jordan Brennan. But we have had some love for Scott Bugner, so I'll leave that for you. Don't have to make a decision right now, Dave. You got another 5 minutes. But personally, I'm throwing Brennan's name into the mix early.
Yeah, I mean, Brad Smith, for me, another driver that has actually impressed me a lot. The way he defended
Jack Mack.
Yeah, the way he defended that. Jack Mack has to be up there. Ryan Elliot, but that's choosing them on their position and the pace they've had. The thing that I really liked about Brennan was it showed me how creative some of his moves were. Where maybe he doesn't have quite the outright pace on the track, but he's made the moves work by getting the car in front to set it up. So here we go on Dorman. He's going to look on the outside, get on the brakes. He's just going to follow him through here. It would have been easy to show his nose there, but he would have lost a lot of time there because that overtake was never on. So for me, just actually a very smart drive for Brennan. A bit of damage limitation here. Maybe not outright the fastest driver, but definitely, keeping his hand in for that championship and bringing home a good amount of championship points.
Yeah, well, if we're remembering back to race 1 as well, it was obviously Brennan in that mix all the time, wasn't he? Ended up taking 2nd place as well, and then we were watching a little bit of Shepherd Newsham, so that may have been a shout as well, but they ended up hitting each other, so you got to sort of discount that one. So all of a sudden you are sort of left with Brennan for the first race being the standout driver. If we're talking about overall pace, then you've got to have Jack McIntyre. He's been fantastic. Yeah. He's been very quick. There's no mistaking that. But the driver of the day isn't necessarily about just pure pace, is it? It's about the racecraft, and it's about giving us something to get on the edge of our seat. Brennan is doing that right now, isn't he? Because Andy Dorman is squeezing him right to the edge, but Brennan around the outside is keeping his foot in. He's saying to Dorman, I'm still here. You've got to be the one to move because I'm not giving this one up easy. And around the outside, we've seen this plenty of times. Here is McIntyre on Elliot. So McIntyre trying to get past Elliot. McIntyre trying to get... Well, he's already got a double podium potentially to his name. Brennan has got past Dorman. By the way, in the background, Brennan went up the inside, around the outside, I believe, and he got the move done on the exit. There's Brad Smith getting a little bit loose on the exit as Andy Carroll goes back through. So 3 changes in the space of that one corner, essentially. Elliot and McIntyre going side by side. The battle isn't done. Elliot kept his position. Brennan went through on Dorman, and then Carroll and Smith switching positions as well. But a huge look up the inside by McIntyre. Elliot's left a barn-sized door open for him on the inside, but he's slammed it shut because it's a left-hand corner straight after that. But look at the slide from the McLaren. It looks good, but it isn't quick. And here comes McIntyre in the Rocket Sim Sports car around the outside potentially. It's going to be a hard braking zone into the hairpin with Elliot on the inside yet again. McIntyre harsh on the brake, trying to carry it. Is he going to get the cutback? No, he's trying to carry momentum. That's not going to work there.
Yeah, this is a brilliant battle for the second and third place. We've almost forgot about Dan Zelos. Dan Zelos is somewhat a mile up the road, busy going around the right-hander at the moment. So Dan Zelos doing a brilliant job at the moment. And actually, Jack, with a very cheeky look there up the inside, how the world that wasn't contact there. I tell you what, this is shaped up to be a brilliant battle with 5 minutes left of this race as well. Is this going to be a big enough battle? Look where Brennan is. He isn't that far off the back.
No, it isn't. And that was, I think McIntyre's been so cheeky here. I'm half expecting him to order a Nando's at this point. It's been fantastic by these guys. I mean, again, edge of your seat stuff. McIntyre and Elliot here. And Elliot's been involved with it as well, hasn't he? Because obviously it was Brennan versus Elliot for that race one. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was. For that race one, for that second place, Brennan ended up getting past Elliot, but he did a fantastic defensive job. He's doing another brilliant defensive job here. He hasn't been asked to do it for quite so long, so maybe he'll be able to hold on to this as the slipstream is taking effect. You can visually see it. There's late on the brakes there. Goes McIntyre as he goes to the desired racing line. Elliot again parking his car towards the apex, but McIntyre's got a fantastic run out of it, hasn't he? Elliot didn't run him wide enough. He didn't hang him out to dry. McIntyre gets through.
Yeah, that was, I think, probably for me a case there of Ryan went too sharp, and I saw a massive TC cut there, really pulling the car back. And Jack, just because he was slightly more open with the wheel, driving it around the outside, meant that he got a good exit, and that's what gave him the overspeed. But I tell you what, Ryan isn't taking that. He's going to put it around the outside. There's no way for him to go here. He's going to have to tuck back in behind Jack Mack. He's not surely going to try and go around the left-hand side there. No, I didn't think so. Ryan doing a brilliant job here to try and fight back quickly, because he knows if Jack Mack gets a bit of space here, Jack Mack will start to pull.
Yeah, and that's crucially, obviously, not what he wants to do. Oh, Adam Shepherd. Sorry, I've been commentating on another Shepherd called Adam for about a year and a half. Chris Shepherd parked on the outside of the circuit, just dropping down. So I don't know, maybe there's a hardware issue, maybe there's a setup issue, I'm not sure, but Shepherd hasn't shown the pace in the race that he did in practice, so really questionable why he's parked on the outside there. Max Bird is in the pits as well. Simon Thorpe is in currently last place of the runners. Callum Newsham, I'm guessing either was really damaged or maybe his connection broke, because his connection, I think, was the issue in the first lap. It was at 1,000 ping, where normally you're hopefully at about 10 to 20 ping if your connection's pretty decent. So yeah, very interesting to see him fall out of the running. There is still 11 drivers running though at the moment. Dan Zelos, who again you'd be forgiven for thinking that he wasn't even in the race. Well, he's leading the race by a substantial margin. More, I think, or just about the same as what McIntyre won the first race in. Zelos really checking out. And for a driver who you mentioned doesn't really consider themselves a rear-wheel drive driver, do pretty well out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure as long as Dan just keep this on the black stuff, we will be hearing, hopefully backing up exactly what I said there. Jordan Brennan, I'm noticing, setting second sector, the fastest out of anyone at the moment. But just to give you a bit of a judge on how much that slipstream is worth, Jack Mack's previous lap when he was in that slipstream, when he made that brilliant move past Ryan Elliot, was about 4 miles an hour faster than Ryan Elliot. So that tells you how much of an advantage the car has. But late on in that straight, so you can see that's what made him overrun the corner, run a bit further. The problem is you get slipstream, it then changes all your braking points as well. So it's actually quite hard to gauge how late to brake when you've got such a run on a driver.
Well, that's exactly it, isn't it? And we've seen a lot of drivers just miss their braking zone completely. Scott Bugner and Andy Dorman here fighting it out. Am I right in saying, Dave, that I think this is an academy battle?
You'd be wrong, because
Damn it, I thought I'd got that.
Scott Bugner is not currently an academy driver. Andy Dorman is, but as you can see, we have seen significant progress with Andy Dorman driving very, very well here, holding on to 5th place. I mean, a fantastic drive so far.
Yeah, I thought I got that right then. I was so proud of myself. Jack McIntyre is setting in a purple Sector 1, which is the reason why the gap between Zelos has cut slightly. Not going to be by enough, though, because there's about 35 seconds left of this race, and that means we are on the final lap. So Zelos has got a fairly comfortable margin. All he has to do is keep it on the racetrack, essentially, and he'll be all right. Brennan, well, McIntyre's dropped Elliot. Brennan's caught up to Elliot by half a second the gap now, but we're currently looking at this little battle because Bugner and Dorman are separated by a lot less than half a second. As it looks of it, Dorman trying to go defensive. He went for a tight line. He's still going for that tighter line as well. Is he going to run Bugner off the road on the exit? Oh no, because Bugner's nowhere near, although Dorman did use all the track, which is absolutely fine to do. Dan Zelos is about to come around the penultimate corner, the one where we've seen all the overtaking happen. And there he is, and you can see in the background there, none of the drivers really close enough to be making a huge move, although that Scott Bugner and Andy Dorman battle is still going on. We will update you on the finale, but there's no saying sorry for focusing on this man, Dan Zelos. He's had pretty much no camera time this race. It was a disaster first race, but he got the pole position on the reverse grid, and he takes the checkered flag as well. He keeps that pole, and he gets to first place. Jack Mack comes in second, Ryan Elliot in third, Jordan Brennan in fourth. Andy Dorman and Scott Bugner are about to cross the line in that order. Max Edmondson and Andy Carroll, Brad Smith, is running very wide on the last corner, but is coming home in 9th place. Mick Sutton is probably comfortably in 10th with Simon Thorpe. An awful long way back. Simon Thorpe just about halfway down the back straight at the moment, so a very solid 11th place for Simon.
Yeah, definitely. You know what? But a great looking car there. And luckily, I'm good enough to know who Simon Thorpe is. And yeah, brilliant garage to go to if you need BMWs or Minis. Looking at a BMW specialist there, and very much kind enough to sponsor me in real life. So top job, Simon. Car looks great. Dan Zelos, what a drive for him. He's Devante Tyres sponsor up the side. Unfortunately, not with that much coverage so far, but for all the right reasons. You know, out in front, a 4-second gap over Jack Mack. And I tell you what, if Jack Mack was happy with the race 1, I bet he's ecstatic to bring home a 2nd place in race 2 as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, well, personally, my driver of the day, well, I'll tell you what, we'll save it. We'll save the announcements for a little bit later because, Dave, you've got a few drivers to have a chat to again.
I do indeed, and we'll jump straight to our P3 finisher, Ryan Elliot. You know what? A double podium with a track that you said you didn't feel like you had quite the edge on. You'll take that in championship stands, won't you?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at round 1 in the touring cars where I scored no points, it's great. It's great to just have a double podium again. I could have asked for more, but Jack just had that little bit extra today. And you know what? When race 1 and 2, when I've raced him, I can't take anything away from him. It was brilliant racing, not a single bit of contact. It's just, you know, how it should be. But great debut as well, like I said, just quickly for our team. Newly formed Zeb Esports, so obviously well done to Dan taking the win there. Me and Scott putting in some good performances as well. Shame about Chris, but he'll be back next week.
Well, spot on there, Ryan. And as I said, you know, it's a good, strong effort for the start of the championship, and you're definitely up there with the championship contention. So well done. And we'll move forward on our P2 finisher. Jack Mack, I was saying to the other Jack in commentary, you know, if you were happy with race 1 with a pole and a first place finish, getting up to second place from a reverse grid race, that has to be a huge confidence boost for your championship hopes as well.
Yeah, happy with that. I mean, I can't pretend I wasn't aiming for first. You know, coming out of the first complex with the safety car, I was already up to 5th or 6th. So it was all on at that point. But then Dan got such a good restart, and when someone like Dan gets an opportunity like that, it was a done deal. So from there, it was just trying to get as far up as I could, and like Ryan said, some really good racing there, really clean and really good fun. So yeah, second place, really happy with that, and I think I snuck the fastest lap at the end, so limited the damage a little.
Yeah, you did indeed. You know what, Jack? For outright pace, you were the person to beat out on track. I'm going to quickly ask you. You know, I don't know whether you've done much testing on other tracks, but you know, this track with the straight. Do you feel as confident going to maybe the slightly more twisty tracks? Do you feel you've got the car nicely underneath you, or do you think there's other cars that you may be looking at going, you know what, I bet he might be fair faster?
The Audi is great around the corners. That was from testing. I think the McLaren was obviously number 1 for me, and then Audi was second just because of the way it drives through the corners. It's got such nice balance, and it's really forgiving. I think it's not as tricky as the McLaren to get the pace out of. You have to drive the McLaren in quite a unique way, and obviously through all the other sim racing I do in a lot of the McLarens, that kind of comes a bit more naturally to me nowadays. So. Yeah, still quite confident, but we'll see how it goes. You know, there's a lot of really quick guys and a lot of quick cars in this series, so yeah, we'll see. And the ballast as well is going to play a big difference. We'll have to see how this car holds the weight.
Yeah, well, fantastic effort tonight, Jack. Huge congratulations on taking a pole, a first and a second, and provisionally going away with the championship lead. So huge congratulations, and look forward to seeing how you do in round 2.
See you, Dave. Thank you.
I'll move forward on our P1 finisher. I bet you didn't think I was going to be saying that tonight, Dan, with the issues that I had just before the race. But not the race one that you needed, but you did just enough to crawl yourself into that reverse grid race and did exactly what you need to bring home the win.
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks to Jack for the kind words. It's good when you get some words like that from someone that high caliber. But yeah, to the races, yeah, I messed up in race 1, that's for sure. That was a bit of an embarrassment. Yeah, jump in the start kind of, then it just got worse from there. So I had to make up for it in this one. Got the start right this time, and then I took my head down and went. As soon as I saw Jack and Ryan get through the pack and behind me, I did start to get a little bit nervous. So I just tried to keep my head looking forward and just waiting for that timer to come down.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I didn't put you down too much, but in race 1 I did say you'd be probably the first person to say you're not a rear-wheel drive expert. You know, front-wheel drive is your thing in the real world and on the sim world. You get straight into it and you're more comfortable. I take it I wasn't just making them words up. That is the way you feel.
No, definitely. Yeah, I've been front wheel drive on a racetrack now for 6-7 years now, so it's a big change for me. But this is the main reason why myself, Scott Bugner, and Ryan Elliot started kind of Zeb Esports for this season. Ryan's got quite a lot of experience in rear wheel drive cars, and I've learned a lot off him already, and hoping we can help each other through the championship.
Well, huge congratulations tonight, Dan, and I think you managed with that first place to rescue your championship there with not too bad result. And yeah, you know what, we're looking forward to seeing how you're going to do. In fact, that'll tell me exactly where you're standing. You're standing 4th in the championship currently so far, so actually looking really quite promising for championship hopes, and the damage isn't done quite yet.
Yep, considering the race 1 we had, I think that's pretty good going, really. So yeah, let's look forward to next week.
Well, congratulations, Dan. See how you get on next round.
Thanks, mate.
And I think that'll do the interviews there, Jack. I think it's probably fair to say Jack Mack's probably going to go away thinking, you know what, I was the drive with a pace today, and I've came away with a point haul that I needed.
Yeah, it could be worse, couldn't it? Than being Jack Mack right now. He's very pleased, I'm sure, with his performance, and I think Dan Zelos with that sort of damage limitation, he had to take home some big points. He did that, exactly that. He couldn't do any better, really, apart from getting the fastest lap in the second race as well. So fantastic from those 2 drivers, and obviously Brennan, he's second in the championship. Was tied on points with Ryan Elliot. Both drivers did very well this evening. Ryan found himself in some fantastic positions, considering I don't think he quite had the pace. We've mentioned Jordan Brennan and his excitement going through the field, recovering almost. And Max Edmondson and Callum Newsham are probably the drivers you don't expect to see that slightly far down. But again, Scott Bugner coming in with that sort of under the radar 5th position all of a sudden. So, yeah, fantastic to see him. And Chris Shepherd keeping an eye on him next time round. But Dave, I think there's probably about time to sound out, isn't it, to finish off the stream and the broadcast. So, closing couple of words from you. Looking forward to maybe next week as well.
Yeah, I mean, a quick driver of the day update as well. I'm going to throw myself under the bus, and I think I'm going to speak for myself and say, for me, what I saw on screen, Brennan was a very, very good contender. And also looking on the channels, the amount of support Brennan has with people saying, come on, Brennan, go on, Bear. I think it's only right that I think, you know, Jordan Brennan goes away with driver of the round. You know what, though? I think it's going to be difficult to choose any drivers going down the grid, because I think you're fair to say, Jack, there is so many drivers on this grid for this championship that could have gone away with it as well.
Yeah, and we're very much looking forward to seeing what their what their attempts at trying to get the driver of the day are next time out. So do stay tuned for that one. It's been a fantastic evening here at Shanghai. Very much looking forward to next week. If you've enjoyed the action that you've seen for the AOC Gaming League of Champions GT4 Sprint Round 1, well, what else are you going to do apart from follow the channel you've been watching us on? It's been brilliant to have you along. Thank you very much for everybody who's been involved in the chat, giving out your suggestions for driver of the day. I've seen Brad Smith getting a lot of mentions as well, so who knows, maybe he'll be there for the next time round. You'll have to tune in to find out. My name's been Jack Oliphant. I've been alongside Dave Marshall as per usual. Tom O'Farrell has been on the cameras as well. We don't give him enough credit. We don't always mention him when he needs mentioning. He does a brilliant job. We'll speak to you next time. See you later.
Between the two of them, the inside of Coates, Parker gets too heavily involved, and that's Whitehead and Coates.